The alien scout ship Varric's Eye moved slowly above the blue planet called Earth. From its high orbit it looked peaceful and small compared to the giant worlds the crew had seen before. The captain, a tall insect-like being with 6 shining eyes, had been sent to test the planet's defenses. For weeks they had flown in and out of Earth's range without a single weapon reaching them. They laughed at the humans. To the Galactic Observation Fleet, Earth was a weak, unarmed place where primitive life was only beginning to understand space. The captain tapped his claws on the control desk, preparing to send a mocking message to his superiors. He would report Earth as no threat at all. Then the ship's sensors picked up something strange. A tiny blip flashed across the screen. It was metallic, small, and moving at a speed so high, the scanner numbers jumped wildly, the navigator thought. It was debris, maybe a rock from the asteroid belt. But its path was too perfect. It was coming directly toward them. The captain frowned and ordered a scan. The computers struggled to lock onto it. It was moving faster than anything they had ever recorded from a so-called primitive planet. The blip became a sharp dot, brighter and closer with each passing second. The crew started to feel uneasy. The weapons officer suggested moving to a higher orbit. The captain hesitated. They had been safe for weeks, and their ship was built to outrun small threats, but the dot did not slow down. In less than 20 seconds, it would cross the distance between the moon and their orbit. The alarms began to sound, loud and sharp. The computer voice announced incoming impact velocity and a collision warning. The captain finally ordered evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. Your eyes. Through the front view panel, they saw a flash of light against the black of space. The object was long and dark, a solid spear of metal spinning as it cut through the void. There was no fire, no heat trail, only raw speed. It slammed into the ship's port side with such force that the entire hull groaned like it was crying. Out. The crew was thrown against the walls. The captain's vision blurred as lights exploded across the control screens. The spear of metal tore through the ship's heart, ripping through 3 decks before disappearing into the darkness behind. Then, for a moment, there was only silence. Then came the sound no crew ever wanted to hear. The long, low hiss of air rushing into space. Red warning lights filled the bridge. Panels sparked and burned. The captain's second-in-command tried to seal the breaches, but one whole section of the ship was already gone. Where there had been living quarters and storage bays, now there was only open space. The Railgun slug, as humans would later call it, had cut the Varric's Eye in half without slowing down. The crew tried to contact the Galactic Fleet, but the communication system was shattered. The few who could still move scrambled for escape pods, but half of them were destroyed in the strike. The captain gripped the railing and stared at the sensor logs. The object had come from Earth's surface. This was impossible. No planet with Earth's technology level could launch a projectile into space at such speed, let alone aim it with such perfect accuracy. The data showed no missile engine, no guidance system, no energy beam, just a block of dense metal fired with incredible force. Smoke filled the bridge as power systems failed one after another. The captain thought of the reports that had called humans unready for war. He now saw that the reports were wrong. It's very wrong. This was not a random strike. This was a warning. The humans had seen them. The humans had aimed at them. And the humans had hit them with one shot. The surviving crew floated in the dark, held in place by emergency harnesses, as the ship drifted in silence. Through the broken side of the hull, Earth hung in the distance, quiet and calm, as if nothing had happened. The captain's breathing grew heavy. He imagined what would happen if a fleet came here. Would each ship be struck down before even entering orbit? Or would every arrogant commander meet the same fate as the Varric's Eye? The thought sent a chill through his alien bones. Minutes later, the ship's structure gave up completely. Metal plates twisted and snapped. One half of the Varric's Eye drifted away, spinning slowly. The other half sank toward Earth's atmosphere, breaking apart as it fell. The captain's escape pod ejected with a sharp jolt. Inside the cramped capsule, he stared through the small window. He saw the curve of the planet again, shining blue and white against the dark. Somewhere down there, hidden from all sensors, was the weapon that had ended his ship in a single strike. He knew he would live only to carry this story back to the fleet. He did not know what the humans called their weapon. He did not know that it was only a test shot, a warning meant to be seen. But in his mind he could already hear how the galaxy would remember this day. One shot from Earth, and the sky had spoken back. The 3 alien destroyers came in fast and confident, their silver hulls gleaming under the sunlight as they entered lunar orbit. They were here to investigate the sudden silence of the scout ship HFY, but none of the crew truly believed. They were in danger. To them, Earth was still a backward little world, incapable of touching ships that could travel between stars. The fleet commander leaned back in his seat, scanning the planet below with lazy curiosity. The humans' technology seemed simple. Their satellites were tiny and scattered. Their space stations were fragile metal shells. He decided it would be an easy mission. Confirm the destruction, send a warning to the humans, then leave. That thought lasted until the moment the stars went out. It happened as they passed over the moon's shadow. For a brief second, a shape blocked the background of stars. At first, they thought it was an illusion, the shadow of a crater, or maybe a chunk of rock. But then the shape shifted. It was not natural. It was smooth, long, and darker than the void itself. The commander squinted at the image feed, his spines twitching with unease. Then the shape turned slightly, and the truth hit him. It was a barrel so large it could never fit inside a ship. It was fixed, hidden within the shadow of the moon. Before he could order evasive action, the ship's targeting alarms screamed. The destroyer's sensors locked onto something moving, faster than their eyes could follow. The commander shouted for a full burn escape, but the warning came too late. Flash, a silent blur, and the destroyer beside them simply vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was just a spreading cloud of molten debris. The Railgun slug had hit it dead center, tearing straight through the armored hull and reducing it to fragments in less than a heartbeat. The 2 remaining destroyers panicked. One fired wildly toward the shadow, releasing a storm of plasma shots into the darkness. None of them hit anything. The Railgun fired again, and the second destroyer was split open like fruit, its back half tumbling away in silence as frozen. Bodies spilled into the void. The last destroyer broke formation, engines screaming at maximum power. It dove behind the moon, hiding from the barrel's line of sight. The commander's claws shook as he sent out an emergency transmission. The message was short and sharp. Enemy possesses long-range kinetic weapon. Extreme accuracy. Unknown reload time. The crew listened to the silence over the comms, broken only by the sound of their own breathing. They knew what this meant. The humans had placed a weapon in space. Not a laser, not a missile, but something primitive and deadly. A railgun, powered by magnetic force, throwing pure metal faster than the speed of thought. It had no fuel signature to track, no energy beam to detect, no warning until it was too late, and it was hidden so well in the moon's shadow that no normal scan could find it, in the quiet of the hiding ship. One officer whispered the unthinkable. If the humans could build one, could they build more? The commander said nothing, but he was already thinking the same thing. He imagined dozens of barrels hidden across the solar system, waiting for any alien ship that dared to come too close. They stayed in the shadow for hours, sending constant distress calls. At last, a faint reply came from their home fleet. Reinforcements would arrive in days. The commander gave the order to hold position, not to risk breaking cover. His crew obeyed without question. Far away on Earth's surface, a team of human engineers watched the moon's shadow through their instruments. They saw the surviving destroyer hiding and decided to let it live. The purpose of the shot had been met. They had shown the galaxy that Earth could hit back. One shot had destroyed a scout ship. 2 more had crushed 2 destroyers. And now, somewhere deep in space, a warning was spreading. This blue planet was not as helpless as it seemed. The alien battlecruiser Argath's will drifted slowly at the edge of the moon's shadow, its massive hull bristling with scanning arrays. It had arrived 3 days after the destruction of the destroyers sent by the galactic fleet to investigate. and recover any remains. Its crew moved with quiet focus, hauling in twisted pieces of armor and shattered components from the wrecks. Most of it was barely recognizable, warped metal, scorched fragments, and frozen shards of what had once been living beings. But then the recovery team brought in something strange. It was a flat steel plate, smooth on one side, and it was not alien in design. Even more puzzling, the surface was engraved with symbols. At first, they thought it was battle damage, but under the ship's lights, the symbols became clear. The plate carried words. The translator drones hovered over it, reading the carvings in silence. They recognized dozens of languages, not only the alien tongue of the galactic fleet, but others. From across the spiral arm, and every single line carried the same message. It was simple, direct, and impossible to misunderstand.
Go home.
The bridge fell silent. The captain, a heavy reptilian veteran of 100 skirmishes, stared at the plate for a long time. Not been an accident. This was not debris from the destroyed ships. This plate had been placed on a projectile and fired intentionally at impossible speed, so it could be found by whoever came next. This was not a weapon strike meant only to kill. This was a message. The captain ordered all debris sealed and stored, then opened a direct channel to the Galactic Senate. Across the stars, the Senate members listened as the data was transmitted. The reactions were mixed. Some laughed at the idea that a so-called primitive world was trying to intimidate the greatest fleet in known space. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Firing a slug that could outrun scanners was already a technical feat. Adding an engraved steel plate to survive the strike without melting or shattering meant the humans had more precision and control than the reports had claimed. In a chamber light years away, the Senate began to argue. A faction of war-hardened species demanded a swift and overwhelming response. A show of force that would wipe away this insult before it spread. Another group, smaller but louder, warned that the humans were not acting out of fear. They were baiting them. They wanted the fleet to come closer. While the Senate debated, the Argath's will continued scanning. They found 2 more plates in the wreckage of the destroyed destroyers. Both carried the same warning, but in slightly different sets of languages. Whoever had made them had thought carefully about who might come to investigate. This was no random act of defiance. It was strategic. It's meant to reach the widest audience possible. The captain of the Argath's will submitted his final report with a note of caution. If humans have done this once, they can do it again. Message suggests confidence, not desperation. The Senate received the report, but the aggressive faction had already gained momentum. They claimed that allowing this insult to go unanswered would make the galactic fleet look weak.
Pride was a
dangerous force in that hall, and within hours the decision was made. A full-scale fleet would be sent to Sol System. Hundreds of ships, from nimble interceptors to colossal dreadnoughts, would descend on Earth and crush its defenses before these railgun shots became a myth that spread across the galaxy. The Senate's leader announced the decision with cold finality. We will teach this world its place. Back aboard the Argath's will. The captain received the orders without expression. He knew what would happen. The fleet would come proud and certain, just like the destroyers before them. They would think the humans were a small target, but in his mind, he kept seeing the steel plate, the simple letters burned into his memory. Go home. On Earth, deep beneath a mountain range, human military planners watched intercepted transmissions from the Senate. They knew the fleet was coming. The engineers smiled grimly. The first shots had been warnings. The next ones would not be. The largest alien fleet ever sent to a single star system emerged from hyperspace in a flash of white light, their formations stretching across the void like a wall of steel. There were carriers the size of cities, dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, and swarms of escort ships darting between them like silver fish. Their presence blotted out entire constellations. The fleet commander, a towering creature with horned ridges along his skull, stood on the flagship's bridge and surveyed the blue planet in the distance. He expected fear. He expected panic. He expected the humans to hide. Instead, the planet just floated in the dark, calm and silent, as though it had not even noticed them. They began their advance, engines burning bright, weapons powered and ready. The plan was simple: crush the Railgun installations, bombard Earth's surface, and erase any sign of resistance. The commander's voice echoed through the fleet channels as he ordered the first wave forward. But before the order could be fully carried out, something strange happened. A deep vibration passed through the flagship's hull like a silent tremor. The sensors lit up with an impact warning, and then the view from the forward cameras changed. One of the lead dreadnoughts, a ship nearly a kilometer long, split into two halves. There was no explosion, no energy blast, only a clean, sudden break, as if an invisible blade had cut it in space. Shock rippled through the fleet. The commander demanded answers, but the technicians could only stammer that nothing had been detected before the hit. No missile, no beam, no trace of an approaching threat. Seconds later, another tremor passed through the void. This time it was a cruiser. A railgun slug punched through its center mass so quickly that the ship kept moving for a moment before its structure collapsed into spinning debris. Panic began to creep in. Ships shifted formation, scattering in an attempt to make themselves harder targets. But it didn't matter. The humans weren't firing randomly. Each slug hit with perfect precision, targeting the largest and most dangerous vessels first. The commander realized the horrifying truth. Someone was watching them closely, tracking their every move, and choosing exactly which ships to remove. From hidden points scattered across the system, multiple railgun platforms were firing in perfect coordination. Some were in orbit around the moon. Others were anchored to asteroids. A few were hidden so far out that they might as well have been invisible. No single platform was firing more than once every few minutes, but together they created an unbroken pattern of destruction. On the bridge of the flagship, the commander's officers argued in sharp, panicked voices. Some demanded that the fleet push forward and overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. Others insisted they should pull back, regroup, and try to detect the weapons before moving in again. Every second they hesitated, another ship was struck down. The clean, soundless impacts left no time for distress calls, no time for countermeasures. Morale began to fracture. Crews whispered about the plates found in earlier wreckage, the ones that said "go home," now watching their fleet dissolve under an invisible rain of metal. Those words felt less like a warning and more like a promise. The commander clenched his claws around the railing, rage and fear twisting inside him. He had led fleets into the jaws of black holes, faced enemy empires without flinching, but here, against a single planet the Senate had called primitive, he could not even see the enemy's weapons before they struck, when the next slug tore through a carrier and sent its burning remains spiraling toward the void. The commander made a decision he had never made before. He ordered the fleet to halt mid-war, engines powered down. The survivors drifted in silence, too afraid to move forward, too afraid to turn their backs. The humans had stopped them without ever showing their faces. And somewhere, far below on the surface of Earth, operators watched from darkened command rooms, their hands hovering over firing controls. The message had been delivered. If the galaxy wanted to test Earth again, it would have to step into the crosshairs. Across the galaxy, billions of beings tuned in to the live feed from the alien fleet's flagship. It was meant to be a moment of triumph, a grand broadcast showing the mighty galactic fleet demanding the surrender of a so-called primitive world. The alien admiral, armored in gleaming black plating, stood tall before the cameras. Behind him, the curved windows showed the still blue planet below. His voice carried in dozens of languages, translated instantly for every watcher. He spoke of mercy if Earth bent the knee, of destruction if they resisted, of the galaxies. Strength compared to one small planet. His speech was meant to inspire fear. But halfway through his words, the screen flickered. For less than a second, the broadcast cut to black. Then a new image replaced the admiral. The cameras now showed a human standing in a vast, dimly lit chamber. Behind him loomed a shape so enormous that it seemed to vanish into the shadows, the mouth of a railgun barrel, wide enough to swallow a small shuttle. The man wore no armor, only a dark uniform with the Earth emblem on the shoulder. His voice was calm and clear, and it carried across the stars without a single tremor. "We do not seek war," he said. "But if you bring it here, we will finish it." The camera shifted, showing the barrel in full. Lights traced its length, revealing a weapon that stretched for hundreds of meters into the mountain rock. A targeting display appeared beside the image, locking onto an asteroid millions of kilometers away. The human gave a small nod. Somewhere deep within the Earth, power surged. The lights dimmed for an instant. Then the railgun fired. There was no explosion in the traditional sense, just a sudden, breathtaking streak of metal vanishing into the void. Seconds later, the asteroid on the screen shuddered and split apart, its massive body breaking into chunks that scattered into the darkness. The shot had traveled a distance no one thought possible for such a weapon. It was live proof that the humans could hit anything they could see. In alien homes and stations across the galaxy, watchers fell silent. Merchants paused in crowded markets. Soldiers in distant garrisons stopped mid-step. Politicians who had argued that Earth was weak suddenly found themselves unable to speak. The Admiral's feed returned, but his face was tight with suppressed anger. Still, he said nothing for a long moment, the silence dragging on until it felt heavier than his threats. Then the human spoke again, his voice cutting through the broadcast. "Leave our skies, leave our world. If you do not, there'll be no second warning." The feed ended there. It was not jammed or interrupted. The humans had chosen to cut it. The galaxy was left staring at blank screens, each viewer alone. With their thoughts, some felt outrage. Others felt fear. Many felt both. On the alien flagship, the Admiral stood in silence for several minutes before ordering the recording of the speech erased from official archives. But it was too late. Copies were already moving across the data networks faster than any sensor could catch. Small worlds on the edge of the spiral arm began sending quiet envoys toward Earth. Some sought trade. Others sought protection. And a few simply wanted to make sure they were not on the wrong side when the next shot came. Far below in the human command center, the operators leaned back from their consoles. The test shot had been perfect. The broadcast had reached every corner of the known galaxy, and the railgun was already cooling for another round if needed. The general who had spoken walked out of the chamber without looking back at the camera. For him, the message was clear. The galaxy could laugh at Earth's size, its age, its technology, but it would never laugh at its aim. On the far edge of the galaxy, beyond the borders of the Galactic Fleet's authority, a pirate warlord lounged in his command chair. His ship, the Iron Fang, was a fortress of stolen tech, bristling with weapons scavenged from a dozen conquered worlds. Around him drifted his fleet, raiders, smugglers, and mercenaries who had all sworn loyalty for the promise of loot. The alien Senate had quietly paid him to test Earth's defenses. Convinced that the human's railgun was a bluff, or at least limited in range, the warlord grinned when he heard the job. One small planet, one untested weapon, and a rich payment waiting at the end. It sounded almost too easy. The fleet jumped into the Sol system in a blaze of light. Their scanners swept the void, but they stayed well beyond the moon's orbit, far out of range for most known weapons. The warlord's crew laughed, betting how close they could drift before the humans even noticed them. The Iron Fang's gunners kept their weapons hot, eager for the first shot. The warlord opened a channel to his entire fleet. "They can't touch us from here," he boasted. "We'll sit back and watch them sweat." But deep beneath Earth's surface, far under layers of steel, rock, and shielding, a team of human engineers was already tracking every pirate ship. They stood in the control room of the Titan cannon, the largest and most powerful railgun ever built. It had never been fired in combat. Its barrel was kilometers long, its magnet stronger than anything else in human history. The weapon had been designed for one purpose: to strike a target anywhere in the solar system. Even at extreme range, calculations filled the screens. Distances, speeds, predicted movements. Every adjustment had to be perfect, because at the speed the slug would travel, even a fraction of a degree could mean a complete miss. The operators moved with calm precision, their hands steady on the controls. In space, the pirates were still laughing. They had no idea the Titan cannon had already locked onto the Iron Fang. The firing order came. The control room fell silent. Power surged through the barrel, a deep hum filling the chamber as magnetic coils charged one by one. Lights flickered, then held steady. The final lock confirmed. The trigger was pulled. The slug left the Titan cannon faster than the human eye could track. Faster than most computers could measure in real time. It crossed millions of kilometers in hours, invisible and unstoppable. Its path a perfect line. Through the void, on the Iron Fang's bridge, the warlord was still boasting when a tremor shook the deck. The lights dimmed. A heartbeat later, the entire forward section of the ship tore open. The slug punched through the command center, ripped through the reactor housing, and exited cleanly out the other side. There was no explosion at first, just silence and the hiss of escaping air. Then the reactor went critical and the ship vanished. In a bloom of white fire, the rest of the pirate fleet scattered instantly, engines flaring as they fled in every direction. No orders were given, no formation was kept. It was every ship for itself. None dared to turn back, not even to rescue survivors. In the days that followed, word of the strike spread faster than the pirates themselves could run. Across the galaxy, the phrase "one railgun shot from Earth" became a warning passed in whispers. Merchant captains told it in spaceport bars. Smugglers repeated it with nervous glances. Fleet commanders remembered it when their ships approached human space. It was no longer just a story, it was a fact, burned into the minds of anyone who valued survival. On Earth, the Titan cannon was powered down, its long barrel cooling in silence. The engineers packed away their tools, their work done. Knew they would fire again if they had to, but for now, the galaxy had received its message loud and clear. One shot, one kill. And the memory of that shot would never fade.